partnership, although due to the secrecy surrounding it, the information has been very limited. Nonetheless, what we do know is quite daunting. Firstly, its purpose seems not to advance trade but to contain it, and the geopolitical imperative seems to be to limit and isolate China from trading freely in the Pacific Rim and advancing the interests of the BRICS nations. These nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, are rapidly challenging the USA and the European Union for the position of global economic supremacy. Secondly, and to further prove the point TPPA is not about trade, of the 29 chapters, only 5 have to do with trade. 24 are on restrictions, regulations and requirements, which will see an end to our independence. While not all has been disclosed and may not be until up to 4 years after it's signed, so they won't know what they're signing until up to 4 years afterwards. The government will not know the full text of it. Well, they're not according to Frank Helson.
Any of the negotiating documents won't be disclosed, but
No,
the actual agreement
up
will
to.
be tabled in
Yeah.
Parliament.
Oh,
once it's
yes.
signed.
5 years before.
We do know that many clauses included are already significant in other free trade agreements that the US has brokered. The Investor Protection Clause, which has already been very well covered, is essentially that if their profitability is impinged upon or reduced in any way, unions, health and safety, RMA or even minimum wage legislation, if it should cost them, they go straight to the international dispute settlements, where the offended party can often walk away with billions of dollars. Germany currently is being sued by Swedish Nuclear Power Corporation because Germany decided to cancel a number of nuclear power plants after the Fukushima disaster. Canada is being sued by a mining company because it called a moratorium on fracking the deteriorating banks of the St. Lawrence Riverway. Costa Rica is being sued by a Canadian company for refusing a gold mine in an area of natural beauty, which gives us a glimpse into having our own protected natural heritage ravaged for shale oil or black sands titanium or our vast quantities of thorium. So it begs the question, what's meant by free trade? You might reasonably assume it means all goods fairly traded without tariffs or subsidies between partners in the agreement. The truth is, New Zealand already has free trade agreements with Canada, Mexico, Vietnam, Singapore, Brunei, Malaysia, Australia, Japan, Chile, and fairly unfettered trade agreements with Peru and the USA. Those bilateral agreements will stand in the event of a signing of TPPA. And for those farmers who think that the TPPA will advance their trading possibilities, the USA, Canada and Japan have already taken dairy and beef out of the negotiations. So forget any ambitions there. Australia fell for that one when brokering their free trade deal with the US, assuming to expand their sugarcane markets, only to find that in the small print there was a no deal on sugarcane. The government procurement clause is another worth serious analysis. It requires an open tendering process that includes all TPPA members. So for our street sweeping, road sealing and local garden maintenance requirements, we must open contract opportunities to Canada or Vietnam or Chile, regardless of how hard our own local unemployed are struggling. One can also imagine how the wages can be driven down by a profit-hungry transnational company with supplies of slave labour to tap into. There are 600 corporations that have been advising the negotiations: Monsanto, DuPont, Bechtel, Halliburton, Shell Corporation among them. They will all have a say, but not you. Our further concerns are for Pharmac and its ability to save us billions in medications and diagnostics. This has been a sticking point with Tim Grosser and the negotiations. New Zealand will not give it up, he has said. However, we know that it can be accepted and then dismantled effectively from the inside. This may increase healthcare costs by the 800%, as it did in Mexico when NAFTA was signed. That's the North American Free Trade Treaty. Changes to intellectual property rights will see common diagnostic equipment redesigned and repatented with greatly extended protection periods. This will increase costs. The evergreening of many drugs will also impact upon our ability to produce generic versions. So we can confidently describe this form of free trade as clearly a monopoly control of markets. It's important to realise that while the Prime Minister may play golf with the President, we are very small beer in the pool of players. In fact, the second smallest GDP in the partnership, so have very little clout. Interestingly, we also have not challenged anything in the agreement, unlike Australia, who have exempted themselves from the dispute resolution process, or Malaysia, who intend to disclose the full text and publicly debate it before signing. Recently it was disclosed that 1.9 million signatures now against TPPA worldwide have been collected. In New Zealand, It's Our Future is working tirelessly up and down the country and forming groups effectively, as many DHBs, unions and Grey Power with their 70,000 members have come out against it. TPPA negotiators expect to have it signed by December of this year. So just to finish, some 2 or 3 weeks ago there was a televised speech by President Obama when he was pleading for fast-track authority to process the TPPA without debate in Congress. I was amazed to hear him say, and I quote, "The TPP is not about trade, it's about power. If we do not write the rules in the Pacific, China will." So one asks what New Zealand needs to consider is the $18 billion worth of trade we do with China under agreement. This agreement manipulates us into a forceful economic alignment against China. Where does that leave New Zealand? We have too much trade with China to join this strategy. Interestingly, at the time the US Congress passed the bill to the President to sign, they attached another bill called the TAA, or the Trade Adjustment Assistance. This is designed to assist the displaced workers who will result in vast numbers when TPPA is passed. How do we know that? Because when the USA signed the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, 17 million Americans lost their jobs. My question to John Key is what provision is in place for Kiwi workers when this goes through? I believe it is vital that New Zealand remain neutral. We absolutely must not sign this agreement. Thank you.